it's an honor for me to be here with you, and it's a great thing you're doing here with the podcast because it was like the main gateway for me to get into spirituality, uh, or not spirituality, but to think in other terms of the usual um the standard way of thinking, or whatever you want to call it, whatever that is. But it was through podcasts and hearing other people talking about stuff that were way out there, or weird or whatever, that opened my mind to, yeah, it expanded my mind really, and it's a beautiful thing to just share conversations. And doesn't really have to be doesn't really have to be what you say that makes a difference in people's lives, but it could also be that you say something, whatever, I think. So
Yeah.
what made you guys start doing this podcast? What was the main thing
That's
for you guys?
that's a really great question. I think it's hard to distill exactly, but I think one of the main intents was an opportunity to continue developing relationship, continue reflecting authenticity and vulnerability that we found in each other in our relationship, and just desiring for that to grow, and having I think the podcast element to it, just having the opportunity to invite others into that, yourself included, just that we would be able to connect with individuals we've already connected with that have interest in the spiritual, interest in being authentic and in growing and learning, and then in the opportunity to connect with new, to your point about learning, the idea to connect with people who have other ideas about it or new ideas that expand how we understand it, to continue growing in that way, and then just, I think, to be a model for people who haven't experienced relationship like that, or haven't had opportunity or the platform to ask questions about their internal life, or what that looks like in habits, or how to show up, and just really trying to be a springboard for that. And it, so far it's been really neat. It's, we're not very far into it, but there's been so much learning already, even just of how we're showing up, an opportunity to be more authentic, or it's fascinating how often we don't actually say what we think about something, or we take the opportunity to take a stance, and because we're concerned about what someone else will think about it, or right or wrong, and I think it's really neat to give ourselves that opportunity to have these thoughts, and to ponder how we want to approach a situation or life or relationship, and not, not that we're going to say the exact right thing, or that what comes out of my mouth right now will be what I end up thinking even tomorrow, but it's the process of being present with it, and having that, and taking that bold step of actually, like, saying it, and
share that process,
sharing it. Yeah. And I think a lot of us I've realized this about myself. I have a lot of my thought that I don't really process until it's verbal, like until I'm having a conversation. And without these relationships and opportunity like that, there's a lot of thought that doesn't actually happen, that doesn't get formed. So it's a really neat platform for that. So that's a small piece of it. It's coming to my mind. Like, great question. What were your thoughts on that, Dustin?
Yeah, I love the fact that Kim I like how you just opened up with a question for us, which is cool. Then granted, it's our second time doing this, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, I agree with what Joe said. My perspective on it, my own words would be, some extra stuff too. So Joe and I dabbled in this podcast last year, and my memory is it was really birthed from, we were like, man, we have these amazing conversations. We're the seekers. We like to talk deep. We're vulnerable. We're sensitive men. We're spiritual men. We're all about growing. And there's not a lot of people if you look at a percentage of just human population that are this, especially men. And so we started recording. We've probably got, I don't know, 5 to 10 recordings that maybe we'll publish them, maybe not, but we didn't. And then it kind of fizzled out. And then when I went through my heartbreak of my relationship ending, it was just something, like I'm sure you guys have heard where they say, a lot of teachers say, like, your pain, the struggle, the crisis, the when shit hits the fan, like that is the greatest opportunity to just fucking level up. And in my pain, in my growing, I just one night was like, fuck it. And I just was like, let's just get this going. I set us up on Spotify, set it all up, and we just were like, let's do it. And to me, that's really how it started. And now where it's at now is I get so much nourishment in speaking with people like you guys and others, where we can cut all the surface level bullshit out and just be real and explore wherever that's going. And to me, it's like, it's gold. I live for this stuff. So yeah,
you do, Dustin. It's nice. You've always, since I met you, you've always been very passionate about this thing, about opening up and connecting and exploring. And I love that. It's very inspiring.
Thank you, man. For people watching and listening, I want to give somewhat of an introduction for who you are. So, and hopefully I can pronounce your last name correctly. Kim Gustavsson?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Gustavsson.
Say it again, please.
Gustavsson.
Gustavsson. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's better. But you can say Gustavsson or Gustavsson. Or Gustavsson.
I'm going to try it, yeah.
That's a Swedish pronunciation.
Right on. Yeah. I want to share quickly how we met, so people know kind of how we all, got here, and my brief experience of knowing you. So we met in India at a silent meditation Mahayana Buddhist retreat near the Dalai Lama up in Dharamsala 7 years ago, 2017, I believe.
Yes.
And keep the story short, there was a lot of synchronicities of someone else I met in Sweden who then told you about this guy from America who was going to this retreat. We didn't know each other. We arrive all of a sudden, because I don't know anybody, I'm shocked that someone screams my name. And we instantly connected, very much like Joe and I did when he and I met a year and a half ago. It was just an instant resonating of frequency, of respect, and like, oh, I don't normally meet guys like this. This I should pay attention to this. There's an immediate peace and calmness in this exchange. And it was funny, we had about 2 minutes to talk, and then we went into silence for 10 days. We couldn't talk. And we had some beautiful experiences. And so we kind of stayed in touch here and there, very little, over 7 years. And then in the open communication, we reconnected this year in the last 2 months. And you were one of the first people that I wanted to have on this podcast. So you are a good man. You're a seeker. You're deep. You're real. You're kind. And it's an honor to have met you and know you and have you here, man.
Thank you, Dustin. That warms my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm trying my best. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about yourself, to introduce anything else that comes up?
Not really. I'm a simple man in a sense. I'm working at a hospital as a physiotherapist. I just graduated actually a couple of months ago, and I'm working there now, and I enjoy it a lot. And it makes me want to go up every morning because it's a meaningful thing, and I'm trying to find peace in my life. And that's it, really. Not very, I don't have any huge ambitions, and, except for just trying to find peace, which is a fucking huge ambition because it's fucking hard. but I'm trying.
I love that. Fuck yeah,
Yeah.
man. So I think this might be a perfect segue into organically having a conversation about a topic that we all seem to agree that was really interesting to us is what is spirituality? What does it mean to us?
Mm.
And I like what Kim said, if it means anything at all. One thing, so in reconnecting with Melissa, who was on our podcast last week, I said to her recently, I said, you know what? Have you ever thought about the idea that a simple farmer with like a wife and maybe a couple kids working on the land, who knows nothing about spirituality or Eastern practices or meditation or whatever? I was like, Melissa, you ever thought about maybe he is the most spiritual person of all? And she was like, I have thought about that. And so I think question start with you, Kim, see where this takes us, is what does spirituality mean to you? And maybe how that's evolved over time.
That's a good one, yeah. Because it has.
Right?
Yeah. So I like the comparison with the farmer that lives there. It's the simple life, the simple man. It reminds me a little bit of Lao Tzu, the founder or whatever of Taoism, because that's something that resonates a lot with me, the Taoism. But what is spirituality for me? I can tell you what it's not. That's easier.
Okay.
But it's not linen shirts, malas, candles, scents, all the typical stuff that you think of when you think of a spiritual person. You think of something that manifests in the real world, something that's attached to the ego, clothes, expressions, music, or whatever. Because for me, it doesn't really matter anymore what kind of clothes you have, or that doesn't mean anything. But nowadays, spirituality has started to be more about how you express yourself than what's actually going on inside you. And I don't think it's bad though. And that's how my journey started. I got drawn into the new age culture or whatever, and but that exposed me to a lot of different practices, and through those practices, I found tools. And I now have a toolbox that I use to find the essence of what's trying to find the essence of what spirituality is for me, and that is the kingdom of heaven, as this as it is in the Bible, in Christianity, and emptiness, as they say in Buddhism, the eternal Tao, as they say in Taoism,
Mhm.
the Atman, as they say in Hinduism.
Connections, yeah.
For me, that is all the same. I think all esoteric religions are trying to say the same thing, really. They're trying. Maybe you've heard this one before, but if you try to point at the candy, uh, tell a dog that there is candy there on the floor. You're trying to point at the candy to show the dog,
Mhm.
but the dog won't look at the candy. It will only look at your hand, right?
Mm.
The hand is all the religions, and the candy, that's the kingdom of heaven, the Atman, the emptiness, and so on.
Ooh.
So that is
Like-
the job for me. It's very simple, really. It's trying to get small glimpses of that, and through all the tools I've learned, and those tools can be meditation, breathwork, kirtan, mantras, and also just way of living, very practical things. Yeah, that's it, I think. And how it has evolved, yeah, it's been a journey, and I was going very deep when we met in India. I think that was almost the peak, and when I came back from India, I really went deep into different texts and tried to connect dots between different texts and spiritual texts. I mean, and, did a lot of different meditations, different yoga practices, and I almost lost myself in it because I lost the ground totally, and it got way too strong, way too fast. From there, I had to back off, ground myself again, and I've been doing that for a couple of years. Now I'm at the place where I think I start to find balance, because I think that's also an important thing, is to find balance. And because emptiness and Atman and all that, that's singular, but to experience the world, we have to live with dualism, right? Because nothing exists without the counterpart, light and dark, and love and hate,
all the
and everything.
dichotomies, yeah.
Yeah, and there is really not a separation between them. They are the opposites, but they are also the same, right? And that's I think what they're trying to say in Taoism with yin and yang and everything. It's but in the yin, the potential of yang lies, and the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if you take the most obvious example, the darkness and light, you need darkness for the light to shine, right? Because if you don't have any darkness, you can't have light.
Mm-hmm.
So in the darkness, the potential of light lies, right? And I think that's that is the most important thing, is to find balance in life, to find balance between light and dark, and
I love
everything
that.
in between. Yeah.
It makes me think of the quote, "The brightest lights have the darkest shadows."
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that makes me think of the most interesting people that I'm fascinated by, I aspire to be, I respect, I just think they're really cool, have been through a lot of darkness. And that's why I think they're able to shine so bright, is because it's how they engaged with the darkness. And to your point, you can't have one without the other, right? I wanted to point out one thing you said too. If you want to share anything more about when you were so ungrounded and so deep in practice, I think you told me you were living alone in a remote, like anything else you want to, because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was, yes, because I just had this urge to get out and to have some time in solitude. I had like a really strong feeling I had to do that. So in Sweden we have the fortune to be able to study for free almost. So I signed up at the course in a university in Umeå, which is up north in Sweden, and I found a cabin there by the ocean. So I lived by the ocean maybe 40 minutes from the uni. So I was living there, and I went to uni now and then for just taking classes. But I stayed mainly at this cabin, just meditating, playing music, did a lot of kirtan. I mean, singing mantras and stuff. And I was just wandering around there and trying to figure out what reality was. I went deep into it. And I was reading a lot of and reading the Bible, and I was reading Bhagavad Gita, trying, connect dots, and I also did some psychedelics out there by myself. And then just one day, it gave me a pre-warning, something was gonna happen. I was singing. I was sitting with my guitar and I was singing, and I hit the notes with my voice, and suddenly I became the voice, and I went out into the room for a brief moment, like my voice went out into the room.
As if you were your voice. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like if I were my voice. I was like floating out into the room, and then I freaked out, and I came back into my body again. And I was like, that was weird. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the day after I went outside, and I was they had this little gym outside, and I was doing some pull-ups, and I was done with that. I was looking around at the trees, and I was like, the trees looks pretty strange right now. And I don't know if you both have done LSD or mushrooms.
Mushrooms,
but
yeah.
when you look at the trees and you see the definition of the lines are very sharp.
Okay.
And
okay.
of everything, yeah. And it was like a psychedelic view, or whatever.
But you were sober, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In that moment, yeah.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, I started to freak out, and it was very wonky for a couple of weeks, and then slowly, I grounded myself, and I came back from that. But I totally lost the sense of groundedness.
Like the sense of self?
Yes,
say that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the self was there, but I felt it was not. I couldn't grab a hold of it. It was fleeting. I was looking at the mirror, and I knew it was me, but I didn't feel any connection with with the view with the person I saw in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that freaked me out because my ego was very, very frightened by all this.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah. And it was not a good experience. And I've heard about, you hear about this great experience with ego death and all that. It should be a beautiful thing. It was horrible. It was fucking
It was
horrible.
horrible.
Yeah. For me, it
Wow.
was. Maybe I
Yeah.
wasn't ready for it, but it was not very nice. And I'd rather live in the dualistic world for a while
Yeah.
longer.
I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Mm.
What do you think, Joe? Any thoughts?
I'm just intrigued and appreciate you sharing that. I think I was interested in kind of that, in your road back from that. Like once you experience that kind of departure, that separation, that the self, or not even fascinated by that lack of identity. Not that's the wrong word. Not lack of identity, but like when you express like seeing yourself in the mirror, but not having like that attachment to it, not necessarily even feeling that ownership or whatever, and that being an unpleasant experience. I don't think that's talked about enough. I think I have a lot of experiences in my life that remind me of just very uncomfortable, whether it's spiritual growth or what's happening there, but it's very disconcerting. It's very like I feel lost or feel uneasy, and I don't know that's not something I've read about as much, or even had these conversations. I don't know that I've heard another person express that as clearly as you did. And I was really intrigued by your response to that, and wondering what you did following that. Like back, coming
Luckily,
back.
yeah. This was 6 years ago, so I can't recall everything. But I was lucky. I had some friends, and especially one friend that has experienced a similar thing.
Yeah.
And this is a person I have connected deeply with, and I trusted him. So I turned to him and visited him in Stockholm, and he was just telling me to, yeah, it was too strong for you, and just try to reconnect with the earth, take walks in the nature, start eating meat again, and just do regular stuff, and have patience, and take it easy with meditations for a while. And if you do meditate, just do regular concentration meditations. And it also came a little bit natural for me to do that because it freaked me out, so I didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so strong, I didn't want to get deeper into it.
Yeah.
So I kind of naturally was drawn to a more material lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. Because I mean, there in the cabin, it was freaking one way because I was alone. I didn't have anyone to grab onto. But when I came to the city, and when I came to other people, and when I started to be with other people more, I naturally landed because I could grab on to people. I got a reflection of that I exist. I got a confirmation that I existed. because when I was alone, no one could confirm the reality but me, and I didn't feel like the reality was very, concrete. But when I met people, I naturally did. So that was a big part of it. And but it was also freaky when I was around people, because I could feel, because I was so sensitive to energies. So when I was in the subway in Stockholm, it was so intense. So I could only sit there and breathe because it was so intense. There was a lot of, I could feel, I almost took on people's emotional states when they passed by. And there are like hundreds of people passing you by when you're going on a subway from one way to another. So it was very confusing. So I just felt a strong urge again to connect with the ground and to close up, to have more integrity, to ground, to be more heavy, to eat meat, to do all those things. It came natural for me, to answer your question, Joe.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. I have so many amazing thoughts and respect for you sharing this, because this is vulnerable, and I have empathy for some of these things, actually. And I think it's really interesting what you shared about, this is one of the pieces I have empathy for, is when you desensitize yourself so much to the outer world and spend so much time alone, which I've also done, and also having done psychedelics too, mushrooms and ayahuasca, and now also ketamine. We're actually going to do a podcast on ketamine or psychedelics, I think, soon, because it's such an interesting topic. But after doing ayahuasca, combination of isolation with not having the tools, I wasn't well prepared for that much of an opening. So there's multiple pieces here, but to focus on that one when you're in the subway, and it's like you become so desensitized, and also being just alone with your mind. You didn't have those mirrors to be like, yes, you are a human, and you're a man, and your name is like these things that help us ground in the third dimension. And it's just like, it's almost like you're just like fire hoses of energy and data and information just being thrown at you, and it's like, it can be really, really overwhelming and exhausting. And so I think that is an important piece, how it correlates to what is spirituality. Because in my journey too, like, I want to ask you, Pete, I want to ask actually both of you guys about this piece. My question essentially is like, and I can open it up first, and maybe, so we're not just like vulnerability, fire hose, right at Kim, and maybe share first a little, and then I would love your responses. So what drew me to spirituality, and I'm actually writing a book on this right now, which is going to be really vulnerable. I got so sick and tired of, so this was when I was 30. I was so sick and tired of anxiety, depression. I had panic attacks. I felt alone. I felt like an alien. I felt so freaking sensitive. I felt so much pain, and there was so much suffering and just confusion. I felt lost. I mean, it was a shit show. And so for me, I found spirituality because it was like, it seemed to be the best route to somehow sorting out all this garbage and crap that made life not worth living to me, not interesting. It was like I was so overwhelmed with just the suck of life. Spirituality to me seemed to be a way out of it. And from a lot of people I met around the world, that seems to be a similar pattern there. But I love what you said. It's like when you take it so far, it's like, holy shit, all of a sudden I'm on the other side of the coin. And it's like a whole nother level of like, well, I don't like this either. And so you came back and you've now found a level of balance. So my question is, what led you, what do you think was driving you to go that deep into spirituality? I'd love to hear both your perspectives, because also Joe has lived a very spiritual. Joe has an interesting story. Joe's a very interesting story. He's a very interesting man. He's pretty humble, so he doesn't really open up to it as much. But I know a lot about him, and so I think we all have very unique stories, as we all do. And I'd love to know what drove you to get that deep into spirituality. Kimmy, if you want to start, yeah.
Sure. Sure, I can start. And I would love to hear your story as well, Joe. But it's a good question, Dustin. Really good question. What drove me to do that? I think I always had a longing for something deeper. I remember when I was a kid, I was thinking about, I had a lot of existential thoughts. That's actually most of the thoughts I can remember from when I was a kid was existential. I was thinking about what's going to happen after life, and what's reality, and what's you know. And, but then that died off when I became a teenager. I think like late teen. Started focusing on other stuff. Started to close myself. Started to be very. I was very arrogant to these kind of stuff, like spiritual stuff, to religion, and I was like that till I was maybe 21 or 22, and I moved to Gothenburg, and I started to meet other people. I started listening to podcasts, and one thing led to another, and it lit like a spark again, and I found that longing again. It's been there the whole time, the longing, but I started to understand what that longing was, and it was a longing for something deeper, more meaningful than the ordinary life we're living. And I thought before that was maybe money or a good job or whatever, like the usual story, like everybody says, But it's a cliche because it's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then what drove me to go that intense? I don't know. It was just a longing to understand, I think. I was seeking the truth. And I didn't have any other purpose. It became my purpose. But I've always been a rebel as well. So I didn't want to do it like didn't want to go to the church and do it, because there is a lot of paved paths to do that, right?
Yep.
But I wanted to go it alone, and try different ways, and yeah. So that was my main drive, I think. Yeah, just to try to find the truth. And what that comes from, I don't know. Something deep inside, maybe.
Yeah.
And circumstances. And synchronicities.
Speaking of our language, man, that.
Wow. Thank you, Kim. That continue. My body is just, I don't know, just buzzing right now. Just I think the similarities, the connection, seeing the like kind, seeing a similar journey. I think to jump back into answering that question, Dustin, also, I think for me, wow, this is incredible. I think similarly, it was a search for truth and trying to find like where I fit in it, like just the existence thing. I love what you said about just the existential questions from early in life. Like I remember My family was pretty religious, involved in the church. It started really early. I don't think I have consciousness, memory wise, of being 8 or 9 and being involved in church and other spiritual things, and just having really deep, confusing questions that my friends weren't having. Like, I couldn't have conversations with other 8 and 9-year-olds about, like, how does this end? Why are we here? Like, what's the meaning of being put in this family? What's the purpose of being born into this country in this time period? So many different questions, and just I think a hunger to know. I think truth is a great word for it, but just like purpose, like to know why me, why was I here, why consciousness, and was so confused by the immense amount that just didn't make sense, and it didn't feel like there were answers. I had amazing parents, very caring and very religious, but there weren't answers for, like, my spiritual questions outside of the path they were on. And at that age, I think it just brought more confusion to me, because it seemed like if I have these questions, there must be answers, and there must be a reason or some, like, truth behind this struggle or why I'm here. And I think, interestingly too, like, some of that started to die as I went into my teenage years, and I think a lot of that was frustration from not getting answers and not knowing where to look. I mean, this was before I could Google stuff, before, like, my local library in North Texas, like, didn't have a lot of spiritual books like I could check out and read. There just weren't options to kind of research that. So I think internally I had a lot of frustration, and mine showed up in anger. I think I became a very angry teenager. I was very rude, very verbally, like, just kind of caustic. And so much of it just came out of pain and confusion of the questions in my head, the questions I couldn't get away from, I didn't have a place to go with them. And it really wasn't even into my 20s until I started to realize that there were other tools, like meditation, breath work, that I could actually start looking internally and asking those questions of the universe or of God, or just like, and kind of receiving answers. I mean, that was all very confusing, I think, for a long time. So in my 20s, I sought out every type of religion, every different pathway that I could get my hands on, through Buddhism and Hinduism, all the monotheisms, which were, to me, a similar pathway once I started to look at them as separate as they were presented to me. Just seeing the correlations in that, and it really wasn't until my late 30s late 20s that I started to find, I think, peace with that, and started to actually, like, feel a connection in with myself and with my own spirituality, and started to love myself. I think part of the anger, because I didn't know what to do with it, I started to use against myself, and then started to be label myself as, like, being broken or outcast, or just trying to soothe that frustration and that pain, and started to label myself. And I think it took some years of actually, like, stepping into fasting and meditation and trying to create a little space around all the labels I'd either accepted from others or given myself out of that confusion and frustration. But that hunger to know, that hunger to find truth, or to be okay with just being in this present moment, never went away. I mean, like, that still drives my journey now. that still drives my connections. And I am really grateful that I have found an immense amount of answers. I'm not saying that I don't still have a lot of questions, but I've found an immense amount of peace with being here and being in this moment. And I thought I was appreciating in Kim's story too, like the importance of a few relationships in his life when things did get very intense, to help frame that, to help give peace to that. And I think that's been a huge part of my spiritual journey, is the different connections I've made, the different relationships, the different individuals who have seen my soul in that journey, and allowed me to be and express that frustration and hold it without judgment, without blame, just offering suggestions or opportunities or other things I could try. And I'm really I was really impacted by that in your story, Kim, as well. How meaningful that piece was. But I don't have an answer as to why I'm so hungry to know that spiritual thing. Like it just is. And I think a piece of it for me was like never seeing myself as, and I remember this back to the single digits, 8 or 9, like never seeing myself as just human on this planet, like really conscious of there being so much more going on. And more often than not, feeling like an alien as a human on this planet. Like, this form of me doesn't make sense. Like this spiritual reality.
Yes, it's like something is not right. Something is.
I'm missing a part of the story, is what it felt like for so long. And I love that your description, Kim, of like the dichotomy or the yin and the yang, like the presence of the other in everything. And I think like that's something that has taken me years to be okay with and move into, that I just am part of the story. I can only see a piece of it right now, but what I know is indicative of all of the other. Like there is a piece of the universal in me and in all of us, and like getting connected to that and having confidence that will continue to become available, to make itself known as I am ready to receive it, and as I continue to ask those questions. I think that piece is fascinating to me, and my heart is really, I think, warmed, and I don't know, I think just enlightened too by seeing that in both of you in this moment as well. I don't know whether there's really a conclusion to that to that answer outside of I'm still seeking. I'm still looking.
We're still looking, and thank you, Joe, so much for sharing it. That was beautiful. We're still searching, and we will never. As humans, I don't think we fully grasp the eternal truth,
right?
Because the truth is not dualistic, right? It's singular, but we can't experience that because we are living in a dimension that is dual, and when we need the opposites to navigate in it, right? So what we can do is just to maybe get glimpses of the truth. To get those glimpses, we need to connect with each other, because I think in the essence we are all the same. Call it God or whatever you want to call it, but connecting with people on a deeper level is really to look into your own eyes, and to connect with yourself, right? When you have a true connection with someone else. And that's what we all just want since we were born. We just want to be seen as a being we are deep inside, without the the filter through someone else's filter. We want to be seen as we are.
Amen. Amen. I think, man, I'm so grounded right now in this conversation, guys. This is fucking amazing. I love everything you both just said. Kim, your follow-up was brilliant right there. We all want to be seen. I've been saying that for years, and you articulated it in a way I don't think I've ever articulated that. It was very nourishing. It's like you see yourself in someone else. And I was talking about this recently. I think it's David Hawkins made this pretty popular. The frequencies of different emotions, and everyone says that love or joy is the top one or top two. And I recently, there was a kind of a viral post. This guy's been getting pretty big on social media, and he challenged that. I said there was a study in Spain, I believe, on frequencies, and he's like, there's actually one that's higher than both love and joy. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's a bold statement. And he said it was authenticity. And I think that's what we're doing. And I since I was a kid, you both said things, and the timing's very interesting. And actually, we met a beautiful soul in India. He's gonna have to come on this podcast. He and I talked about this. The same age, between 7 and 9, he started having all these things happen. I used to ponder existence, like very similar. Watch sunsets alone as like a 7-year-old. That's normal. But to your point, then it got quiet. And to Joe's point, I got angry. I was arrogant almost. It was like this defiance of something. Just like I didn't even know what I was defiant, but I was just angry. And it was just like, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that there were so many unanswered questions that, for me at least, I think in hindsight, I felt like I had to close it, just because it was so hard to grasp. So I had to protect myself almost. And I recognize the feeling of anger and arrogance as well. But please continue, Dustan.
Yeah, absolutely. In thinking about what I've written of my book so far, both of what you just said is, I think of the best word, amazingly, synchronistically, nourishingly beautiful, of like, whoa. Literally, I'm sure what I've written in my book so far could be written about both your lives, just different nuanced details. The principle is almost identical. It's pretty wild. Adding to why I got into spirituality, an extra flavor, you both inspired me right now with what you shared. Joe, you're almost saying kind of like you didn't really know the reason why you were, I think, that passionate. Did I get that right? Like you didn't you always driving. You say you couldn't articulate that piece, but the elements of your journey and the elements of what you shared, Kim, it's like if I overlap them, I'm like, holy God, that's my experience. That's amount of anger. I got very violent in high school. I got in trouble. I got in fights. I got arrested more than once. I sold marijuana when it was illegal. I went through that phase, and it was interesting what you said, Kim, too. Is like I felt I needed to close to protect myself. That also resonates. Also, I was bullied and stuff, and so there was multiple reasons why I was like, fuck this. This isn't safe. I don't have the answers, and that's confusing in itself. And then now I feel the world's like, I felt weak. I felt weird. I felt outcasted. And what I think is so beautiful about this piece that we all share is, in my life experience, no matter how sensitive someone is or how much they can resonate exactly with what we're saying, what I do think everyone can resonate with, I'm thinking of every human being I've interacted with, more or less, I believe this to be true. It's what you said, Kim, to be seen and to take off the layers of artificialness, of walls, of defenses, of shoulds, of shouldn'ts, the mask, all that. This is the goal. And I feel everyone is just starving for it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Even if you're not
They're
on this
starving for it.
spiritual path.
Even if they're not aware of it, they are.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's food or drugs or sex or porn or spirituality or working all the time or staying in a relationship because you're afraid to be alone or whatever. It's like we're all, I think, as humans, just starving for that. And I think that was my drive into go into spirituality so deep. I felt so undernourished just in the human experience. So undernourished. And I was like, I went through a dark night of the soul, almost wasn't here on this planet anymore. If I would have continued down that path, would have not been alive. And the spiritual path, it was like, something's wrong. And I will go as far as I have to figure out how this can make sense. And I think this is the answer. No, I know it's the answer for me. Is what we're doing right now, what I'm doing for a living, projects, Joe and Shirley and I are working on different things. It's all revolved around what we're talking about, seeing and being seen. And there's a lot of modalities you can do, and a lot of ways we can make that manifest. One of the most simple is what we're all doing. We're just here, and we're being fucking real. And we're letting our walls down, and we're sharing beautiful things. And it's like we all make a symphony together of that. Like we're all in a beautiful instrument. And it's like, whoa, that person is really playing their instrument. Holy shit. Oh, I'll play mine. And then we get in sync and just magic happens. And I think that is the answer. That's what I was seeking. Because now that I have that more and more, we're building it in this moment. I don't feel the need to be so zealous, so intense. And like, I got to do all this crazy stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well said, yes.
It's just, damn. That's amazing.
Yeah. Because to reconnect with how we started the podcast, that what spirituality is. And for a long time, I thought it was trying to find certain experiences, to experience stuff, to experience meditative state, to experience this, to experience bliss. But it's the opposite. I think it's the opposite. It's to resist the urge to always experience stuff, right? And to just let it be and to let it happen, because we will experience. Whether we try or not, we will experience. And of course, it's fun to experience. Of course, we should seek to have fun and seek new experience, but not in the purpose of finding truth. Just in the sake of experience, I think. And I think that's important, because I think that it's a lot of people are confusing spirituality with that, with experiencing things, Kundalini rising and everything. And it's tools, and it's important as well on the journey, but it's not the main goal. What do you guys think about that?
I was just contemplating. I really love your answer. I think that really reflects a lot of how I've experienced a shift in my understanding of spirituality, how actively I sought something outside of me, and I think experiences was one of those things, trying to connect with something I didn't feel like I was. And that was the spiritual path. That was, as I understood it at the time, was trying to change me or to connect to things that I was not outside of me. And I think the shift has been the understanding of just being and allowing and stepping into the fact that I am a spiritual being and that I am experiencing that, and that is happening in every moment. And this is as it should be. I think this has been a huge theme in our lives. Like this last year, Dustin and I have talked a lot about this too, just like the perception of shifting, like this is happening for me instead of this is happening to me. And like an energetic difference in that, it being outside of me and it just being that energetic, like what is. And I feel like that's been similar to the statement of like, I was looking for myself. I would have said that in my 20s, probably into my early 30s. Like I spent so much time looking for myself. And it was the eventual awareness that I am. Like there's no way I can't be myself. Like it's always happening. And it was, a friction and a misunderstanding of that energetic doing energy, trying to find that, and then stepping back and allowing it to just be. I think that so connected with the power of presence, and I think that spirituality is right now. Like it, we're in it. It's not something you do.
Exactly.
It's not something you achieve. It's not something you practice for 30 minutes. It's who we are, and do we see it and align with it and allow ourselves, I think, the grace of experiencing that journey, because it's an incredible adventure without looking for it. Like it's here, we're in it. That really spoke to me though, Kim.
Well put. I like that. Yeah,
that really resonates. I wanted to add to this. So cool. Even having a conversation about this like a week ago, hearing what you both just said, it's like I'm like, oh my God, I have this extra pearl, I think, of perspective on all this stuff. Is I think for me, spirituality is, or even religion, like all these different paths, I think it's like connecting all the different religions and cultures that I'm thinking of. Is like, for me, it was all about, I was so disconnected from myself. I didn't love myself. I was angry at myself. I judged myself. I hated myself. I didn't even know who the hell I was, ironically, because I'm always here no matter where I go. Like you said, I just am. I didn't know that, though. And so for me, spirituality, this connects to another topic, too, of like I traveled the world. I met you guys on retreats. I lived in other countries. And I've talked with you both and others recently of like, why the hell was that so great? But then when I came back to home, California, this culture that I grew up in, why am I all fucked up again? What's going on here? And to me, I think it just gets back to spirituality was me trying to figure out a way to live in this world that I felt at peace and connected and okay being in the present moment. And all these different tools, like you're saying, from psychedelics to staring at a candle, doing a candlelight, or like a rose meditation, something simple, just a 2-minute, quiet your mind, whatever. To me, it was all this wild journey that I'm so humbled with having epiphanies, even in the last month on this stuff, is why was I so good there, retreats and all this, and so shitty here? It's like, well, it's very simple. Because there, I took my fucking masks off. I allowed myself to be seen. And I was present and authentic. I think it's that fucking simple.
It is.
That resonates, I believe, with what you're both saying is like, I can do that everywhere. It was just scarier and harder to do it here.
Yeah.
Because I had to have the courage to face people's dislike or judgment of me or not wanting to resonate with me. And that was fucking scary. My inner boy, my inner child was deathly afraid of that. I was terrified of that.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what spirituality is. No matter how you go about it, whether it's a religion or not.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not, it's just goes back to the farmer. That's where I think I have a connection with that in some sense of, I don't know if I believe that to be 100% true, but I think there's a gem there. as a farmer. It's just like, I'm just here being myself, living life, and I am myself, and I feel connected with my little town of people I know, and we're just all real, and we all love each other. Even if we get upset, we're just here.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what spirituality is.
That's a good one. Yeah. And it makes me think of the expression of tender your own garden. Like focus on your closest surroundings, because and the most close surrounding you have is yourself. So work on yourself so that you can be the most. And if you do that, and if everyone does that, we can change the world from literally within, and not try to force the change to happen from the outside. And spirituality has had a lot of negativity the last maybe 100 years because of the industrial revolution and everything, and the success of materialism, and the not so very nice dogmatic things about the traditional religions. But I think I do, and I agree on that they are very, it's an old way of thinking. It was important at the time. I mean, religious rules and everything. But it's outdated. But I still think spirituality has a place and is the most important thing to make the world a better place. Because without it, you can't change the world without changing the people in the world from within. That's my firm belief.
From within. I love that.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. There's a quote, I don't even know where I got this from, but I used to say it a lot when I was living in Bali. It's change one, change 1,000. Change yourself. And everyone around you
Exactly.
authentically had a different experience for having had met you.
Right.
That's it right there.
Yes.
Right? Change
That's
from
it. Yeah.
Well, guys, I gotta head out soon. Anything? Any other? Speed round. I want to ask. I want to do this little speed round attempt. I want to ask you a couple questions, Kim, and we're playing this right now. So, okay, first question: if you could tell yourself one thing from your current wisdom and knowledge right now, when you were like a young man, say 16, 18 years old, something like that, or even younger, whatever. You're a young man. What was one thing you wish you could tell yourself right now with what you know?
No one fucking cares.
All right. I like
you want
this.
me to elaborate or just...
No, I think this is perfect. And I got a hunch that doing these and having whoever's on, like you right now, is just a one phrase, one sentence answer, as brief as you can make it. Joe, what about you?
I think that was great. Man, still not sure on this one. I think love yourself. I think it kind of comes back to that, like what we were. Oh, this is not a brief answer. I think love yourself.
Okay.
With the speed round stuff. I don't talk speedily.
I know it's hard. I was even really unconsciously hard. Like, yeah, share more, and then I'm like, you caught yourself. Like, oh shit, yeah. Okay, mine would be learn how to feel unconditionally, your mind and your heart, and you'll be free. Next question. Unless, Joe, do you have one that's coming up that you want to ask either of us or no? Okay. Next question. I like to do kind of hit like 2 or 3 here. There's a few that I'm sorting through. Okay. Bring it back to the topic. As simply and briefly as you can state it, what does spirituality mean to you, Kim?
Balance, Acceptance.
Acceptance in this present moment.
Being fully authentic. Last question. Ooh, this is fun. Okay.
I love this game. We can keep going for an hour.
I know, right? Our last guest, Melissa, was like, you should start with this, and I forgot to even try starting with this. So I think this would be fun to do at the start and the end or something, you know? It's fun. It's almost like a game. So the next question is, I'll word that differently. Okay, last one, then I gotta go. What is one thing about you that no one or most people, like, they don't know this about you, right? If there's one thing you could share with the world about you that either no one knows or most people don't know, what is one thing you would want the world to know about you or your life experience? One thing you could share.
That's a hard one. Okay. Maybe beneath everything, beneath the shell, it's all good intentions. It's all love. And it's not so serious either. And yeah, that's it, I think. Don't take me so serious.
This is great. And I'm intrigued by how much I'm struggling with this question. I think that maybe some people do know this, but that I'm loving this experience. The joy, and I think it can be true for everybody, I think surrounds every moment of this experience here. That it does, and we have the opportunity to step into that, to see that, to experience that. And I think underneath that is my drive, is to connect with that in this present moment. Find joy.
Beautiful.
This is a fascinating and a tough question. I think that's what makes it so interesting for me, at least. That most of my life, I was so much more insecure or scared than most people realized. It was connected to my fear of being seen. And now that is one of my biggest blessings and passions. That's what I would say. Yeah. So, gentlemen, I have to go. This has been an absolute pleasure. Oh my God. Love you both. Thank you, Kim, for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. It was fun. Thank you for your patience and for letting me try to figure out what spirituality is, because I came into this totally unprepared and with no expectations, and English is not my first language either, so maybe that's a good thing sometimes, because to think things through before I answer them. So thank you guys for your patience.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a great evening, night, day, and we'll talk soon. Thank you. Love you guys.
Talk to you soon, guys.